call you Enrique. What's up, guys? Welcome to episode 18 of Roll with the Fox. See, I got the numbers right. So, guys, today we're doing a little different. We're doing it out of Mike's living room with my new Enrique. I had a minor back procedure yesterday. I'm not allowed to be on the mats yet. Well, I could be on the mats, but you know my posture is not the greatest, and I know if I sit on the mats answering questions, my posture is going to get bad. So I need to keep good posture, and we're going to do a Q&A. I'm hoping that I can actually get on the mats to teach by next Friday. So we're going to aim for next Friday. So we have some questions that I got earlier this week, and I think it's a good way that we can talk about this since we're not going to be doing moves. Well, maybe my new Enrique might, but not me. Guys, don't hesitate to tell me if my posture starts to get bad. Please let me know because I need to maintain good posture. And if my head starts to go like this, there's two fans whirling over my head. So you know what happened. I told Mike to turn it off, but he said he couldn't. That's his way of saying I don't want to.
I'll try to keep a cool climate. You know?
So guys, I had a very interesting question. And the question was, why do not more of your students compete? Why don't you push more of your students compete? And I had a pretty quick response. I feel pretty strongly about this. But before I answered it, I said, why? What difference does it make? And the answer was, well, for prestige of the academy. Well, I do care about the prestige or of the academy, but more so of the atmosphere and sort of how the academy is perceived as a world-class instruction place with great atmosphere. This is what I aim for. I aim for it to have a nice, clean facility with world-class instruction and good atmosphere. That's it. Now, my students come in, and my job is to help them, is to teach them jiu-jitsu, but also I try to help them achieve their goals. Most people, I believe, when they train Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu, they're coming into Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu with a self-defense set of mind. Some may be interested in competing, but I believe that majority of my students, self-defense is probably number one priority on that list. As people study and train Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu, they get a lot more benefits. They get fitness, they get really, increased confidence, better concentration, stress relief, and so forth. Now, for those students that are interested in competition, I'm happy to help them and help them compete, but this is their decision. I never push anybody to compete. And the guys that are actually competing and they want to fight MMA, they kind of, again, if they want to do that, if this is part of their martial arts journey, then I'm going to help them with that, and I'm going to corner them and help, make sure that they are technically, mentally, and any other way prepared that I could possibly help them with. There's one caveat, and I didn't do this when I first started. When I first started opening my academy, I'd have a person, for example, for 6 months, they would come in, maybe once a week, once every 2 weeks. And they said, Fox, I want to compete. I said, oh, okay, whatever you want to do. So I said, but you understand that you haven't been competing, you haven't been really training that much. And, there's a lot of factors, and we're going to go over some of them that go into competition. It's not just technique, but there's so many different things that go in. Whoever wins is not necessarily technically the best person. A lot of times the technically worst person wins, but we'll discuss that a little bit later. But so I said, whatever you want to do, but you might want to start training a little bit harder. You have 8 weeks, so let's get you here at least 4 or 5 times a week. No problem, Fox. In the following 6 to 8 weeks, I saw the person, say 4, 5, 6 times maybe. And I told this person, I said, listen, just because they had a habit of coming in like this, head on the outside, crappy single leg or double leg, and guillotine. I said, whatever you do, don't get caught in guillotine. And of course, they get caught in a guillotine, and then they quit because they believe that their loss is a result of, maybe they didn't get a good enough instruction. Well, I'll tell you what you didn't get, or you didn't put in. You didn't put in the work. I don't care how good you are. If you don't put in the work, you're not going to win. I hate the word talented. I don't like, everybody refers to everybody talented. You know how many talented people I've seen that quit jiu-jitsu because, 2-3 months later, they still getting their ass beat, and they think that the talent should carry them through because that's what they've been used to through their life. And I've seen untalented people get really good at jiu-jitsu because they put in the work. I'm not talented. I put in a lot of work, and I appreciate the work more so than talent. Talent is born. The work is your choice. So the only caveat, so I've had instances like that before, and basically now I tell people when they say, Fox, I want to compete, I have them pull out their card first thing. And trust me, I know before I even see that card, I know what's on it. So I say, okay, and this is one of the reasons why I have attendance cards at my academy. I don't have those swipe things, even though I bought the whole system with the swipe, because nobody ever looks at it. Just, it swipes, everything's good. No, I want to look at the card. Oh, you want to compete. Do you know in the last 3 months you've been here 6 times? Do you understand you may go against a guy that trains 5 days a week? Who do you think is going to get, first of all, there's nerves. Well, let's start to get into some of these factors. Nerves is the big factor. I cannot emphasize it enough. Strategy, ability to impose your game, the ability to change strategy. That comes from experience. Sometimes people cut weight, which I'm not a big fan of, but did the weight cut go well? Did it go poorly? And sometimes these factors can literally be stood up on their head. I remember years ago, it was 2000, I want to say 7. It was Naga Worlds in Jersey City. It was 2,000, 2,200 competitors. It was a big tournament. And I was supposed to go at noon. They combined, it was in Masters, they combined all the weight classes. And I was the lightest guy in the class, in the whole division. And they tried to speed things up. And basically, I was supposed to go on at noon. I think I went on 6:30. The night before, my dog had the shit, so I was up every 2 hours with him. And I had some cold coming on back then, and I felt miserable. I usually, like, when I feel miserable, I give the other people no allowance. I literally went through the whole field. I submitted everybody. And it's weird because you would have thought just the way I felt, that was not going to happen. So there's a lot of different things that go in, but your mindset, nerves, is probably the single most important one, even more important than technique in competition. A lot of people, sometimes they have the feeling that, well, how can you defend yourself if you're not in competition? It's two dramatically different things. If you're in a self-defense scenario, it's like this. It happens quick and you react on autopilot, everything is good. In competitions, people literally psych themselves out because they are like not sleeping for 8 weeks before. They're not eating. They're like, oh, what did I do to myself? Why did I do this to myself? So the point is, competition has nothing to do with self-defense. Yes, you're going to get high intensity where people are trying to possibly hurt you. That's the only thing that approximates, a real-life self-defense scenario. Everything else, the nerves and everything else is artificially made because it's a lead-up to the competition, which you're not going to get on the mats. And let me tell you something. If you train in a big school and sometimes you want to have an intense training session, you can have those. I've been in training sessions at Renzo's at my school with guys who was literally competition intensity where, we basically both not verbally agree, but basically as our training session escalates, basically we're going for it. And sometimes, it literally, with the guy, it's a panic tap because it's at that point, it just goes fast. So again, I want people to understand, are there some benefits of competition? Yes, you can test out your games. You can test out your nerves. You can really, the nerves are big. I never wanted to compete. I started competing at black belt. I was By then it was mid 40s and early to mid 40s, and I competed against guys that have been training since blue belt, competing since blue belt. So I missed out on all the, all the experience, strategies and so forth. I just went in and tried to submit people, but I did it because I didn't want to do it. But I literally don't want to. I would say out of my student body, maybe 10% of the people compete, and I respect that, and I'm happy for their results, and I'm proud of them whether they win or lose, especially if they put in the work, and so that's my views on competition. I would, if people want to do it, first thing I look at their card, did you put in the work? Because this is not magic. This is jiu-jitsu, and competition is the sport aspect of it, and if you want to do that, you got to put in the work.
First question we got is from Anthony T. He says, "Good morning, gentlemen. What advice would you give to someone who wants to compete but was recently promoted? How much time at the new belt would you say is sufficient enough to be competitive?"
Well, it depends, because the jump from blue to purple is big. So it depends on purple to brown is not so big. Brown to black is big, usually. So it depends on the belt, and I'm not talking about in the competition scene, because sometimes you have people that sandbag, meaning that they've been a blue belt for 2 years, 5 years, or 3 or 4 years, and they should be a purple if not brown, but their coach enjoys saying, "I have a world champion." So it depends, and it depends on your motivation. What are you trying to achieve from competition? Are you trying to gain experience? If you're trying to gain experience, then go in now. If you try to win medals, wait a couple months in your academy, because usually from white to blue, that's when you have a mark on your back from all the white belts. So you might get a little bit more intense rolls from the white belts, and that's going to prepare you a little bit better for the intensity. So again, but at the end of the day, you want to ask yourself a motivation. What are you trying to achieve? I always, anytime people say, they want to do this, I always ask them, why? What do you want? What are you trying to achieve? What is your goal? Because sometimes people will try to do something that is not going to help them achieve their goal.
And Kanai Kiyoshi is asking, do you think that participation in competitions is overemphasized?
Yes, absolutely. You see people just, they're yes, absolutely. Especially nowadays, there's so many different tournament circuits, and people have super fights. Guys, no offense, but super fight, if at blue belt, that's a way for you to get your family and friends, pay up 30 tickets, buy 30 tickets. So it's overemphasized. And then I would say again, my academy, and it's a big academy, roughly 10% of the students compete. And again, guys, don't take my previous comment as an insult to a blue belt. But what I'm saying is, you go to a blue belt division at IBJJF, it's going to be deep. Like Pan Am's or Worlds, you're going to have 60, 80 guys. Super fight, they just, the promoter makes more money because, and I'm not begrudging them, because it helps spread jiu-jitsu. So I'm happy for it. But also, you get a belt and it's nice, but you went against one person that was just semi-randomly chosen. So I'm not begrudging that, but it serves some good purpose, because it helps promote jiu-jitsu, brings in family, friends, and they see you, going out. Even if you lose, they respect what you did, that you put up a good fight. And sometimes even if you lose, they're like, "Oh wow, I didn't know you do this. This is pretty amazing. You lost, and I was really proud of you." And sometimes even that is even better, for them to say, "You know what, I was afraid that I was going to get hurt." And it's not just about the medals and this jiu-jitsu is a journey. It's about sucking it up. It's about building character. And sometimes those losses can help that as well, even though obviously everybody wants to win. But I think it's overemphasized. Like I said, my academy is big, but I would say maybe 10% of my students compete. And, if anybody does and they put in the work, I'm encouraging them. If not, then I'm just going to, not encouraging them, say, yeah, do it. My philosophy, my academy is so big and I'm pulled in so many different directions. I try to corner and coach the most senior guys, and then I expect them to corner and coach the guys that are coming up after them, so that way we have a broader reach, because I just can't be at every competition.
And JCB Paris is saying, hello, coach. Renzo Gracie was able to practice BJJ at a very advanced age. What advice would you give to someone who wants to last in BJJ?
Well, you got to be careful. I have a bad back. I've had a bad back since I was a kid. It periodically flares up. It's been flared up the last 2 months. So that's why I had to get this thing yesterday. But you have to train smart. You have to, for me, everybody has different thresholds, and those thresholds will change over time. So when you first start out and you train 5 days a week, it's going to be hard, especially if you're people in their even late 30s, early 40s might have a hard time training 5 days a week intensely. It's too much. Let your body adjust. You got to take into consideration whatever physical ailments or things you might have had before jiu-jitsu. I love jiu-jitsu, but it's probably not going to help those ailments. So I would try to, and you may have to adjust that over time, have almost like a weekly training regimen. So mine is usually, I try to, when my back is, it's not good, but it's also not kind of in that nearly seized up moment, I will train hard 3 to 4 days a week. Forget about teaching classes. That's separate from teaching classes. I'm teaching classes for others. I train for myself. I'm training for myself. I will train hard 3 to 4 days a week, and the remaining 3 to 4 days a week, I will train softer, which means drilling, flow rolling, and I'm a big fan of training in the water. I think it's highly, highly underrated. Now, when the last 2 months my back's been way worse, I've been training medium once or twice a week, and all the other days, the remaining 5 or 6 days, were in the water, just solo water drills. I'm hoping I can go back in the water tomorrow or Sunday. So I have to change it just because if, I was hitting in rolling, I was just hitting the pain button too many times. So you have to make adjustments, but normal circumstances, I will try to train 3 days to 4 days hard. If I cross that, and periodically I do, if I go 5 hard days, then the next couple of days is rough. I'll train in the water, but it's going to be rough. So you have to make those adjustments based on your individual circumstance. I'm hoping that once this steroid that they put into my spine, I might be jacked by next week, guys. It's a different kind of steroid. That if it works, that I can go back to training hard 3 days a week and 4 days lighter, some flow rolling, drilling, and so forth. Drilling is underrated. The water training is highly underrated. If it wasn't for the water training, I'd probably be broken. My game would be way worse. I'd be training 3 times a week, and yeah.
And Piotr is asking, what are the pros and cons?
Congratulations on your black belt, by the way.
Nice, awesome, congrats. He says, what are the pros and cons of the instructor pairing students up for rolling versus them picking their own partners?
I tell you what my philosophy is. In the fundamental class, I choose the people, because in fundamental class, you have a lot of beginners or people that are relatively new, so it's good to have a good training partner so they have a good training session. If you pair up a 42-year-old guy that's an accountant that started 2 weeks ago with and it's not even it's basically an athlete, young athlete that's kind of just doesn't have the right mentality. He may be relatively new and he doesn't have the right mentality. He doesn't yet understand what jiu-jitsu is about. He thinks it's a war every time. you pair them up, they're both going to have a horrible training session because eventually, like I have some wrestlers that are quite good wrestlers, and they're very good with the newer people because they understand the process. But sometimes you get an athlete that relies more on their sort of physicality and their so athleticism and talent. They don't understand that this guy it's not going to be as easy for him, and he's gonna that's what he expects, and the other guy's like, oh shit, I'm never going to be like, I'm not getting it like this guy. So that's my philosophy. In the advanced classes, I generally will let people choose their training partners, because people have a tendency sometimes to fall into ruts where they train with the same people. But in advanced classes, you could roll. You have four training rounds, so you could you're gonna switch up anyways. So I usually let people choose their own, unless there is a clear mismatch that maybe I didn't catch right off the bat. That you have some super aggressive visitor that just came in a blue belt and he's trying to beat up on a small female purple belt. I immediately, okay, you go with him and you go with somebody else.
And 2 more questions before we close out. GM Baseball is asking, how can I better trust the techniques? I often make half-hearted attempts which fail, and I lose confidence, and I don't want to fully commit to techniques.
I assume that's in rolling. So what you need to do is reel it back a little bit, where the techniques so guys, this is a little bit more advanced because in very beginning stages of your jiu-jitsu journey, it's going to be hard for you to just get on the mats and understand which techniques you want to hone, you want to improve, because you don't know anything, and you just start, so just try to absorb everything. But over time, as you get better, you will develop some certain techniques that you believe that might be a good fit for your game. And your coach, you can always ask your coach, hey coach, I'm thinking this is a good thing to sort of start building upon. And so when you have that, when you have a technique that you believe would be a good addition to your game, if it's not working, it's you putting it. It's sort of like designing a car. You stick a motor in it. You basically make the clay model, stick a motor in it, and see what it can do. It's probably going to come apart. You have to go through the process. First, you make the clay model. Then you make first you make a computer model. Then you make the clay model, and so forth. You build up to it. So in jiu-jitsu, what that would imply is, first, when you see the technique. So if you saw it in the class, you were probably drilling it a few times. If you saw it on YouTube, and again, if you're white blood, you might want to wait on something, because sometimes people look at some YouTube things that they may not be doing for another 2-3 years. But if you see something and you say this might be a good addition, try it on your regular training partner. Hey, help me with this. What do you feel? Get some feedbacks. Say, like, what do you think? If you're not sure, ask your coach. Again, coach, I'm thinking about adding this, but I'm not hitting it the way I thought. So what you do is, when you drill it, you sort of start to make that movement more the way it should be. Next step is sort of flow rolling. That's why I'm a fan of flow rolling. So when you so in advanced class, we start with flow rolling. It's a good time to just get the blood going. I'm not saying just flopping around like a dead fish or but basically what you need to do is practice movements precisely with lower speed and lower intensity. And yes, submissions are allowed, but it should be catch and release. You catch somebody in a submission, lighten up on it, let them spin out of it, let them escape. So you practice the submission, they practice the escape, and you now see where, if you didn't quite hit it just exactly the right way, where that's going to go. That's also a perfect time for you when you're flow rolling. Hey, let me try this on you. I want to try to hit this. Let me see if I can get a couple opportunities to hit this at a lesser intense pace. And then once it starts to work in flow rolling, now it's time to start to bring into your regular rolling and possibly competition.
And the last one before we close out, Jake Taylor is asking, should a teacher ask a student to become a teacher, or should the student ask the teacher about becoming a teacher?
Both. I think it's both. If you have an interest as a teacher, If somebody has an interest in teaching, I want to hear it. I'd love to hear it because, think about it. I have 50 people on the mats, and I may not think about it, but if they express interest, I will try to help them pursue that interest. And I also will ask students if I see that somebody's really good with with other students and helps. I'm like, hey, you have any interest in teaching down the road? Because teaching is a separate skill from just doing jiu-jitsu. So it's good to build up both skills if you have an interest in it. All right, guys. I hope to see you next week, next Friday, 10:30 a.m. Episode 19, hopefully I'll be on the mats. Now this is your time to say share, subscribe, and like. You've been sleeping through the whole thing, huh? See you there, guys.